Good afternoon, and welcome to our Florida Priorities Education Town Hall featuring the new superintendents in Miami-Dade and Broward. I'm Monica Richardson, the executive editor of the Miami Herald and El Nuevo Herald. On behalf of our newsrooms, I want to thank you and especially our special guests for being here today. Florida Priorities originated in 2018 as an annual summit featuring thought leaders discussing issues and ideas and new solutions to the most important matters facing South Florida. In 2020, it evolved into a series of virtual discussions throughout the year like today's event. As a parent, I recognize the need for today's discussion with our important education leaders. This is the value that you get from the Miami Herald and the El Nuevo Herald. Our mission is to bring you local journalism with impact. I'm also excited to mention that this week, we are launching our new education newsletter, South Florida Report Card, which will keep parents, students, and teachers updated on the latest news in Miami-Dade and Broward. Sign up for free at miamiherald.com/report card. Again, thank you for joining us today for this important discussion about the opportunities and challenges facing our South Florida schools. And now I'd like to welcome Nancy Ankrum, our editorial page editor, to kick things off. Nancy?
Hi there. Thank you so much, Monica. We've brought together two brand new South Florida school superintendents, looking to hear their visions for the school systems that they lead. They have come on board at a unique time, facing a range of singular challenges, from putting the effects of COVID-19 behind them to a more hands-on state government. Four stellar Herald journalists will be asking the questions. The first two are education writers Summer Brugal and Jimena Tavel. And please welcome Superintendent Jose Dotres of Miami-Dade County Public Schools and Vickie Cartwright of Broward County Public Schools. I ask that our guests keep their responsive comprehensive, but concise, so that our viewers can learn as much about their visions for their districts as possible. About 1 minute or minute 15. I will be the official timekeeper. I'd like to invite Summer to ask the first question. Well, before that, I'd actually like to ask our guests to just take a minute to introduce themselves. Ms. Cartwright?
Good afternoon, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be on the show today. I greatly appreciate this opportunity. I am so happy to be here in Broward County Public Schools. I'm, for the most part, Floridian. My major part of my career actually being in Orange County Public Schools, where I was there for 17 years and had a progressive track leading all the way up to my last position there, where I was associate superintendent for exceptional student education. I've been a teacher, I've been a school administrator, and I've been a district administrator, and I'm here before all of us today to make sure that the experiences that I have, I'm applying to be a servant to those for which I lead, so that our students are prepared for tomorrow's world.
Thank you so much. Superintendent Dotres?
Thank you, Nancy. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon to share our vision. I came back to Miami-Dade County Public Schools, a school district that I have worked in for over 30 years. Like Dr. Cartwright, I started as a teacher, then eventually became a principal, have served in multiple roles at the school district. So my goal is to continue the success of our school district, making sure that our students are receiving the best education possible, that we're supporting teachers in whatever they need to make sure that they have optimal teaching and learning conditions. And of course, school leaders, making sure that they're equipped to do whatever they need to do to make sure that the student experience is the best possible throughout Miami-Dade County Public Schools. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much. I'd like to make a correction. I did make a mistake. The editorial board member, Isadora Rangel, will be asked among the first questioners, and Jimena Tavel will be in the second group. So if we could just bring on Isadora, and my apologies. Summer, I would like you to ask the first question.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here today. This event is occurring shortly after this year's legislative session, where education and the role parents should play in educational decision-making are at the forefront. Do you think legislation such as the parental rights in education, or what opponents call the Don't Say Gay bill, will change the way districts do things? Superintendent Dotres, if you'd like to go first.
Thank you. This bill has been introduced, and there's still a lot that we're learning from it. We are expecting some guidance from the state regarding what are some of the provisions that we have to provide. One thing that is important is the bill will not prevent us from ensuring that our students and our employees are protective, that they're safe, and that we're trying to provide whatever services they need to make sure that they're comfortable, that we're attending to their mental and social and emotional needs. But again, we still are awaiting guidance from the DOE regarding some more specifications and provisions regarding this bill.
Superintendent Cartwright?
This is one of those areas, again, very similar to Dr. Dotres, as we are paying close attention to what those rules are going to be. The number one message that I've been sharing with my staff and to my teachers is continue to provide those nurturing, safe, and supportive environments for our schools and for our children. It's extremely important that we have an inclusive attitude and our actions are aligned to allow for that inclusivity. Unfortunately, we know that children from the LGBTQ plus community are at a much higher risk for suicide and suicide ideation. And so by having those safe environments, we know that we minimize a lot of those environments so that they don't go into those areas for which is detrimental for them. The other thing that we're curious about is the part of the bill that a lot of people are not talking about is where it authorizes parents to bring legal action against a school district to attain declaratory judgment and provides for the additional award of injunctive relief, damages, and reasonable attorney fees and court costs. There's no precedent behind this. And so we don't know what that actually means, how it will play out, what is the potential financial implications that's going to be occurring for school districts. So we're very eager to see what these details are, though the Department of Education has a year in which to write these rules. We're hopeful that they will expedite this process so that we know what our guardrails are.
Thank you so much. Isadora, you have a question?
Hi, good afternoon. Also during the legislative session, Governor DeSantis recently signed a law to do away with the Florida Standards Assessment, the FSA. The new law will institute a system that requires, quote, progress monitoring during the school year, in addition to an end-of-year assessment. But there's disagreement over whether this will lead to more or less testing. What is your take? And Superintendent Cartwright, we'll start with you.
Certainly. Thank you very much for that question. So with the FSA being replaced with a new assessment, a lot of this is, again, we need the details. We have not been informed of a lot of the details at this point in time. We've caught wind that hopefully by this summer, they'll be able to provide us with some training. However, that's really close to the very beginning of the school year, of which the first administration has to be within the first 30 days of school. So if it's going to require for us to have more technology that's available in order to administer the test, it's not a lot of time to put orders in and receive it, especially with the shortage on computers right now in the supply chain. So we do have some levels of concern related to that. Also have some concerns as to how will we provide accommodations for our students who receive Section 504 plans, as well as those students who have individualized education plans where assessments are supposed to be occurring in paper pencil format. So right now we're holding to see what this is actually going to look like. If it is truly being used in the method for how they're describing it, to where the first two assessments is more of a progress monitoring base, and it's supposed to be adaptive and model, which is how we do that currently here in Broward County Public Schools, then we're hopeful that this will be a resource and we can not have to do both our own progress monitoring as well as something from the state.
And Superintendent Dotres?
Sure. And just like Dr. Cartwright has indicated, there are still areas that need to be further discussed and understood. However, I want to be optimistic. I want to be optimistic that the state is actually incorporating two elements, which is progress monitoring into the fold. And my understanding, or what we've been told, is these two progress monitoring probes or assessments will be directly related to being able to make adjustments and instruction in real time. So what happens typically is our accountability system currently relies on the summative test, the test that occurs at the end of the year to grade the student and grade the school district or the school. Having earlier points of progress checks is very, very useful. They're typically called formative assessments that we've been using here in Miami-Dade County Public Schools since 2007. So if in fact we can use those and replace them with what we currently have, it'll be in line with what we're doing. Again, the value of this is for teachers to be able to take a snapshot of where students are and make immediate adjustments in instruction, and also for parents to know, not at the end of the year, but throughout the year, how their children are progressing. So I want to be optimistic because when it comes to teaching and learning, formative assessments are really the pieces that make a difference, not elongated tests of windows of 2 and 3 days and 2 and 3 hours, but precisely smaller chunks of assessments that can provide real-time progress points for children.
Thank you. I have a question from one of our readers. Teacher pay is a huge issue, especially with the soaring price of gas, food, and housing. Yet teacher raises are in the 1% to 2% range, and many teachers are working more than one job. What are you going to do to help pay teachers more, understanding that this also is a state issue? Superintendent Dotres?
Thank you. So teacher pay, a very important issue, not only in our school district, but across this nation, and what this also represents to the teaching career. We have to pay teachers more, not only because of the rising cost of living and food and everything that we're experiencing, because it is a career that needs to be valued at a higher rate. And we are doing everything that we can here in the school district to make sure that we are prioritizing the pay for teachers. We've had concerns about the pay for mid-year career teachers. That has everything to do with retaining them and keeping them. As you know, there is a rising need for teachers across this nation, in particular areas, mathematics, language arts, special education. And this is something that we need to truly pay attention to. We were very fortunate that in our school district, we currently have a referendum that has allowed us to increase pay significantly for both our beginning teachers, mid-year career teachers, and veterans. And we hope to have the same type of support from our community with an upcoming renewal of this referendum. But again, we have to maximize anything in our power to really recognize the profession and make sure that teacher pay stays in line with the rising cost of living, of food, and everything that we are experiencing at this time.
Thank you. Superintendent Cartwright?
Certainly, I echo many of the words that Dr. Dotres was just shared with us. We recognize that for our teachers, they are our top commodity in order to have a positive difference with their students. They are the ones who are in the trenches every day, working with each and every child that is here in Broward County Public Schools. And so how do you put a value to that? And that's something that's very difficult to do. When we're taking a look at what the governor just approved with the state budget, we're actually very grateful for the additional funding that he has provided for our teachers, because what we're getting is about an additional 2.5% increase that we'll be able to apply. In addition to that, our school board recently here also went ahead and authorized for us to go forward in this upcoming August to not only renew our referendum, but take it from half a mil to a full mil. That will, of course, be reflected back out into our teachers' salaries. Broward County was one of the first of the 3 counties here that originally did this operational mill. And so we started at 0.5, and then Miami-Dade had a higher mill, and then West Palm Beach also had or Palm Beach County had a higher mill than that as well. So it's one of those things we're hoping that people become informed about and have an understanding of why there is a need in order for us to go after a full mill coming up on the referendum in this August.
Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce our next 2 journalists, editorial page writer Luisa Yanez, and again, education writer Jimena Tavel, who will be asking the first question. Jimena?
Hi. State lawmakers recently passed a bill that restricts teaching critical race theory and other race-related issues. Critics say it will inhibit the discussion of historical events related to race. How will your districts adhere to the law, yet have the accurate teaching of U.S. history?
I think it's
Yes, please go ahead, Superintendent Cartwright.
Thank you so much. That's a very good point. And, what's really important for people to understand is that Broward County Public Schools doesn't teach critical race theory. So the implications related to this is we don't teach that in our schools now anyway. So what we are committed to doing is ensuring that we are educating today's students to succeed in tomorrow's world. And an important component of a well-rounded education is that comprehensive knowledge of our American history, the events, the debates, the legacies of which define the past, impact the present, and shape our future is so critically important, because we learn from our past and we learn from things that have occurred to help guide us as we make decisions going forward.
Superintendent Dotres?
So thank you, and very much in line with Dr. Cartwright. Our curriculum does not have critical race theory. We follow the state standards, and the state standards require that we teach history within factual, unbiased opinions. And one of the concerns, I know some of the words that are sometimes used, is indoctrination. And that is definitely outside of the realm of anything that we do in our school district. We develop our teachers and we provide training that is aligned to our standards. And critical race theory has never been part of the curriculum in our school board, which has been very, very diligent and very attentive to this, has on multiple occasions assured the public, and we have made every effort possible to communicate that we do not instruct students on critical race theory.
Thank you. Louisa, question? Louisa, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Yes, this is for Dr. Dotres first. COVID impacted education it appears to be in our rearview mirror. As you have assessed the damage the pandemic did to learning in our school district, what have you learned? And more specifically, what is being done to help students who fell behind during virtual learning to catch up? Dr. Dotres?
Thank you so much. And that is the most critical and important question that anyone can pose at this time. And anything that keeps us distracted from the unfinished learning that our students have experienced, and some of the mental health and social emotional needs that they have, that is what I believe the role and the focus of any superintendent across this nation needs to keep their eye on. Our school board also has been very deliberate in asking us very specific questions in terms of how are we monitoring student progress, how are we supporting teacher development, and how we are equipping our principals to make sure that they have the tools to properly provide for what is now needed, right? As it relates to unfinished learning, we have to be able to do two things. We have to be able to accelerate learning to make sure that our students are catching up. And then some of our students that may still be struggling and not progressing at these higher rates of acceleration that we would like them to do, is ensuring that they are participating in a host of activities that we have invested in via ESSER dollars. I'll give you some very quick examples. Extended day schooling, tutorial assistance either before school or after school, the importance of really doing prevention or interventions with students that we know are evidence-based and create positive student outcomes. We rely heavily also on summer school, and we will be having a very robust summer school coming up. So these are all of the academic pieces that we are monitoring and making sure that they're in place to help us accelerate learning. In addition to that, now moving forward, you can no longer discuss academic achievement without the social emotional support and mental health of students. So we have hired and added multiple layers to every school, in addition to the one or two counselors that schools had, so that students are able to access more mental health specialists. We've added mental health professionals, mental health specialists, and just recently created a brand new position called student support services personnel, which adds a third layer of support so that we can refer families for mental health support. We can provide direct services to students at the schools and also help teachers be able to address the whole child and not only the academic side.
Thank you so much. Dr. Cartwright?
I would say that we're taking a very similar approach to what Miami-Dade County is as well. So what we found when we came back into our schools were a few items. Not only were we seeing that there were unfinished learning that had occurred with our students, but we also saw a heightened level of need for social emotional support, as well as what we would call for mental health support. And so within Broward County, we really focused in on how do we provide some additional layering of support for our students and for our staff as well. And so we made sure that, for example, we have a program which provides free family counseling. They can get up to 12 sessions in order to work with their children. We added on at the beginning of this year 3 new positions. 20 of them are full-time school social workers that are assigned to some of our most delicate schools, so they're full-time on that campus, as well as 10 additional family therapists. We're finding that taking this very strategic approach, we're able to support the whole child so that all the things that are beyond academics, so that we're setting up the environment for that child to be able to come to school ready to be able to sit and learn. As I mentioned before, taking that same approach as to what Dr. Dotres is doing is accelerate. Don't remediate, because there is a difference between remediation and acceleration. And we've done our research. We know it's a best practice that students who experience those learning accelerations struggle less and learn more than students who start at the same level, but experience remediation instead. I think this is also very important because this approach of accelerating the learning is actually particularly effective for students of color as well as those from low-income families, which is something that we are paying close attention to. So throughout this entire year, we are doing a lot of progress monitoring, which goes back to those formative assessments to really make sure that we're shoring up some of the unfinished learning opportunities for our children. We're making sure we keep that asset-based mindset than a deficit-based mindset, because by keeping it into an asset-based mindset, we're able to see what the child is bringing to the table and build upon those skills so that they can be successful at the current grade level standards. So those are some of the things that we are doing in Broward County in order to address the academic needs of our children, but also the social, emotional, and developmental needs of students as well.
Thank you very much. I have another question from a reader. Teachers are getting verbally and physically abused by their students in some schools. There's also a culture of bullying and harassment coming from administrators toward teachers. What are you doing to return the schoolhouse to civility, to being a civil place, so that teachers can feel safe in their own classrooms? Superintendent Cartwright?
Thank you for that question, because I think we've all seen it as a society, and our community, society as a whole has really become divisive. And our approach into civil discourse has definitely shifted. We see that matriculating into our schools, because we know our schools are nothing more than a microcosm for the community for which we serve. And so if, as community members, if you're seeing an increase in criminal behaviors, aggressiveness, we're seeing that in our schools as well. One of the things that I have done as superintendent here in Broward County Schools is starting to be very intentional. So we, for example, recently had across the entire district verbal de-escalation training for all of our teachers and administrators on talking about ways in which to help students de-escalate when they are starting to become escalated within the classroom, and trying to take that down a notch. We're also have really poured a lot of resources into the mental health and wellness programs. And we're seeing the data on that actually is starting to pan out. In other words, when I'm taking a look at our discipline numbers pre-pandemic to where we are right now, it's very similar. I'm not seeing sharp increases or decreases either way, but the reason I would say is not as high, is not any higher, is because of all the different strategies that we're doing. I've also brought forward a civility policy for my board to take into consideration. It's gone through the first reading. And the reason is because the environment of our schools need to be professional and they need to be civil. And we have plenty of policies that deal with behaviors amongst employees themselves, but we don't have anything for those who come onto our campuses who are not our employees, and how they interact with our employees or how they may even interact with themselves. And so we're trying to put in some policy so that we can go into practices in order to ensure some of those more professional environments. This past Friday, in fact, I pulled in every one of my principals as well as our union stewards across the district. And we just had a very real conversation about expectations of school culture, because Broward County's public schools, we're the #1 employer in the county. And if we start changing the tone and going back to the tone of what we are customarily known for, of having that positive interactions at our site, I believe we can have an influence on our community as well, because it will matriculate out. So again, it's just that community relationship.
Thank you very much. And Superintendent Dotres?
So I just would like to add maybe a couple of other things to what Dr. Cartwright very well articulated. At the end of the day, we have seen students coming back and really exhibiting some behaviors that we're not used to. So we have had to respond, and our response have been really expanding mental health training and awareness for staff and for parents. I want to mention also that we have even a parent assistance line in order to respond to things that parents may be seeing in their children or experiencing. We have a parent assistance line. I'm going to say the number for some folks that are attending. The number is 305-995-7100. And we have it Monday through Friday from 8 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We also in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, we're very fortunate. We have our own school police department. And it is important because they are police officers, but they are really SROs, right? Police officers, they are specifically trained in working with students in de-escalating behavior, in mental health, and really trying to be more preventive than anything else as it relates to behaviors that we may be seeing in our students. And also we've invested a lot of time and being very deliberate in terms of training and developing our own school site administrators in terms of how they support teachers and what are some of the action steps and some of the programs that we've implemented that has to do with everything with mental health first aid, trauma-informed practices, multi-tiered systems of support. But again, it's a triad approach where you have the additional training and awareness that we do with teachers, the additional development that we've done with our school principals, the participation and involvement of a school resource officer in every single one of our schools that is trained on mental health and is able to respond in a supportive way to these behaviors and make sure that they take action when it's needed. I believe by the same token, moving forward, as we provide professional development for teachers regarding any element where it is content or non-content related, we need to add a social, emotional, mental health piece so that we can help them really respond to some of the behaviors that they may be seeing in their classroom, but really supporting the teachers, being responsive to what's occurring in the classrooms, and having school leadership that is attentive and a central office that is also deploying additional supports is critical for us to really develop these cultures in schools that have to really support and welcome a sense of belonging for every single one of our students.
Thank you so much. I would like to bring back to the screen our first two journalists, Isadora Rangel and Summer Brugal. And Summer, you will be asking the first question this time around.
Dr. Dotres, in 2019, only 40% of the district's Black students, grades 3 through 10, passed the FSA English Language Arts exams, compared to more than 60% of Hispanic students and 77% white students. There was a similar disparity in the math exam. Given the setbacks exacerbated by the pandemic, how is the district planning and working towards closing the achievement gap?
Summer, so thank you very much. And that was a question that I was actually posed earlier by the Miami Herald editorial board, a real issue that we are really taking a careful look at here in our school district. I mentioned earlier all of the additional interventions that we're providing because those achievement gaps existed before. Imagine now with the additional disruption and the additional unfinished learning, it is very concerning. I have to praise our school board. They brought forth a board item just recently where we are creating a task force that is taking a careful look at the achievement gaps in our school district. But what's really important is what we're doing. So we are taking a careful look at schools in particular that appear to reflect these gaps in more magnitude. And just maybe 3 weeks ago, we had roundtables with 81 principals regarding the progress that their students were doing, the gaps that we were looking in terms of the achievement of the students. And one thing that we have been doing is we cannot address achievement gaps when students are not in school. So attendance for us has been very, very critical. We're looking at students. So we've actually benchmarked students in terms of how many days they've been out of school, the 5-day mark, the 10-day mark, the 15-day, and now more than 20 days is becoming a benchmark that we are looking at very carefully. What have we done? We are no longer just relying on the phone calls and those personal visits that schools are doing. We have now our region support level also getting involved, reinforcing and adding supports to make sure that we are calling these students and alerting parents and the students themselves of how important it is for them to come to school. And even from the district level, we are also providing additional expanded personnel that's also tapping into students that have not been present and have not been engaged. So student engagement is really, really important in order to make sure that they progress. However, I have to tell you, we are really looking at making sure that students are in school so that we can provide the extended learning opportunities, the additional interventions, all of these, what we call push-in support. These are additional teachers that come into the classroom to provide more personalized assistance to students. But we need them in school, and we have to have parents that help us make sure that students are encouraged to come to school, because unfortunately, the pandemic and the virtual instruction at home has set in a behavior that we basically have to turn, and we have to really pivot them to making sure that they come back to school and be participants in our academic programming.
Thank you. That question was directed specifically to Dr. Dotres, but I would like to give Dr. Cartwright a chance to talk about if you are seeing a similar gap between Black students and others in your schools and how you're addressing it.
So the effects that our current pandemic has had on our children is definitely real, and it did have a disproportionate impact on our students, and not only academically, but also social, emotionally, and mentally. So some of the things that we found coming into this school year was we couldn't find a lot of our students. So early on, we did something unique and out of the box for Broward County, and we had our re-engagement fairs and campaign in September, for example. Though our schools do this on a normal basis, reaching out, locating families and such, we actually for a whole 2 days assembled administrators, teachers, cabinet members, school board members, and we all went out on the foot, knocking on doors, trying to find our children. Now, once we found them, it was also important that we made sure that the connection occurred back out at the school level. So that way we continue to monitor. So that way, if the attendance starts to be a concern, we're putting in the appropriate interventions to get them back, analyzing why is that getting in their way. Is it because they don't feel included in the school? Is it because they just don't care? Or what is going on, so that we can provide for those appropriate resources for them to be successful. And so this was our attendance campaign that we're doing right now in order to really identify those patterns of non-attendance throughout the year, as well as during our testing windows. We increased this year our extended learning opportunities that are provided at the school level. So there's much more opportunities for students either before school, after school, Saturday school, in order to come in and accelerate their learning. In addition to that, we also really increased our social emotional learning initiative, where it incorporates our social emotional learning pre and post assessments into the curriculum itself, with a focus on resiliency for our most fragile learners. And I think that's important. Of course, we're offering additional tutoring that's happened as a high yield strategy, but we're targeting how we utilize that particular strategy, really looking at who is struggling at what area and match the tutoring that they're receiving to the area where they need some reinforcement. And lastly, I'll talk about is the implementation. We've always had this in place for our district-wide mentoring initiatives. However, it's just a doubling down on that right now, because it's really important that we have a variety of mentoring models that allows our students to connect with the school and engage in learning. And that's what we're missing right now, is that connection piece again, because they weren't here. And so a lot of the relationships that we had in place before, we're having to go back and rebuild.
Thank you so much. Isadora, you have the next question.
Yes, last year, Miami-Dade and Broward schools defied an executive order by Governor DeSantis and required masks during the coronavirus Delta wave. Now the mask mandate has been put into law by the state legislature. If COVID cases start rising again, will you go against Florida law and require masks? Dr. Cartwright.
If this goes back into place, we do not have an intention to violate the law. We frankly speaking, prior to it becoming law, we felt as though we were in compliance back then. And then the moment it did become law, we fell into compliance very quickly afterwards. So what we will do, though, is we will go back and take a look at some of our mitigation strategies that do not include the wearing of face masks or face coverings, and ensure that we are implementing those strategies back into our schools again in order to minimize the spread of COVID-19.
Dr. Dotres?
Yes, thank you. I would like to say ditto, but I can't. So I have to elaborate a little bit more. So what is important, absolutely, we will follow state law, but by the same token, we're going to make sure that we follow the science and any additional recommendations that we can provide so that our students remain safe and our staff remain safe. We will make those recommendations, but we have to abide by state law and also follow additional mitigation strategies, sanitizing schools, and doing whatever we need to do to make sure that we have students in school, engaged with teachers, with instruction, and that we don't fall behind and end up in a situation where we're dealing with unfinished learning again.
I have a reader question. There's a significant teacher shortage as experienced teachers are retiring and have retired during the pandemic, and younger people are not entering the profession. And with this tight labor market, teachers are resigning and taking better paying jobs elsewhere. What are you doing to recruit more teachers and, more important, to retain them? Dr. Cartwright?
Certainly, some of the things that we are doing at this point in time is we are, as I'd mentioned before, we are asking for our ability to at least be competitive with Palm Beach and Dade County with our referendum request that is coming forward because we do believe that that will assist us in order to be more competitive within the South Florida region. We're also taking a look at what are those things that we can do in order for our teachers to feel more empowered and appreciated as well. So, for example, at the end of the school year, being brought forward by one of our board members, board member Donna Korn. It was her idea. But at the end of the school year, we're going to have just a time where teachers can come out, interact with one another, and celebrate. So it sounds like a one-off, but it's a much larger picture. We're just looking for ways in which to honor and recognize our teachers on a daily basis. That environment is very important. To recruit is also helping people understand why Broward? Why do you want to come to Broward County Public Schools? Yeah, a lot of people don't know, for example, some of the benefit packages that we provide, such as our health insurance. We have one of the best health insurance packages that around. And so making sure people are aware of those things. Also, looking a little bit differently right now. How can we recruit different than what we're doing right now? We know, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have been displaced from Ukraine. And a lot of them are educators. And so there's an opportunity for us to see how can we work creatively in order to help them find a home, as well as getting them certified here within Florida for their educational certifications. So it's a multi-tiered approach. As you can see, there's no one way of doing this. And I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that it's not only our teachers, this is also happening with administrators too. In fact, if you take a look across the entire nation, there's even a lot of superintendent vacancies that are coming open because people right now are just very tired. And so I continue to look forward to the partnerships that we have here in Broward County. We have a lot of amazing partners that work alongside us to support our teachers and our administrators out at the school sites, and they celebrate alongside us.
Thank you. Dr. Dotres?
I believe this is one of the most important issues that we are confronting as a educational entity, right? Teacher shortage is not here as a result of the pandemic. We have been working with this for the last 5 or 6 years. And here, and Nancy, you said it, sometimes it's more about recruiting and maintaining and keeping and holding on to our exceptional teachers and not losing them than recruitment. So I can tell you that what we've been trying to do very hard is really position ourselves as an employer of choice, an employer that cares about teachers, that we provide solid professional development, that we mentor every single new teacher that we hire, We have a very robust, a very strong new teacher development program, because what we're realizing, and one of the reasons is that we are now hiring more teachers that come via the career changer pool. So your teacher talent pool currently is more 60% of career changers versus 40% of individuals that have been pursuing teaching as a career. So what have we been doing? We have been implementing grow your own teacher programs from within our own school district. We did a complete line of grow your own paraprofessionals to teachers. And then we moved into the role of growing a lot of our clerical personnel into teaching. We've noticed that some of them have not finished a full bachelor's degree. Some of them might have been short a year. Some of them might have been short 2 years. So we've been doing a lot of hand-holding of our current employees and really putting them on track to become teachers. Most currently, what I've been doing is already met with the provost at FIU in trying to really realign our teacher preparation programs, taking a look at how quickly we can bring teachers on board, and plan to do the same thing with Malou Harrison from Miami-Dade College, which I extended out a call to her. We really have to relook, redesign, rethink, project out in a very different ways what teachers are all about. They are leaders, they're creative, they work with children very effectively, and we cannot only expect folks to be hired that they want to think that they're going to be in a classroom for 20 years or so. We are a very good employer. We provide career ladder opportunities. Individuals that we can hire that are talented can grow with us into different positions. So it's really about the profession itself, trying to reframe it, reimagine it, project it in a different way so we can really attract folks that really want to make a difference in the life of children, but they too will be able to experience multiple career opportunities in our own school district. So again, I believe you have posed one of the most significant issues that we're facing in education today.
Thank you so much. For our final round, I guess I sound like a game show. I'm going to bring back Jimena Tavel and Luisa Yanez. Jimena, I'm going to give you the first question. I think it's directed to Dr. Cartwright.
Dr. Cartwright, you recently asked the school board to create 2 new top positions in the school district, with each making at least $200,000. Yet teachers are struggling with low wages. Why did you do that?
Thank you very much for that question. So we are in the midst of actually doing a reorganization of our entire district. The reason is because looking at how our organizational charts run right now, we're not positioned in a way to where we can be providing services really close to our schools. And so we want to get back to being able to be very responsive, and that individuals know who to contact in order to get assistance. For example, my school social workers actually right now have 3 different divisions that they report to. So we're looking to streamline that, and that's going to take a little bit of time for us to do as well. As to bringing on board deputy superintendents, so I have a deputy superintendent over operations and one over teaching and learning. And it's very important for us to be able to have that laser-like focus on both areas at the same time. As superintendent, having one person in charge of having that type of oversight all the way through is very difficult, because ultimately what ends up happening is I'm constantly going out, putting out fires, whereas I'm better utilized providing the vision, making sure that I'm leveraging resources and partnerships to provide supports directly into our schools. And so by having these 2 positions, they're able to really take that vision and implement that vision. The other thing, again, is what they'll see within the reorganization, that there are going to be some eliminations of positions as well at the higher level. So it's just restructuring how we're providing those supports.
Luisa?
Yes, this question is also for Dr. Cartwright. As we know, the Nicholas Cruz trial began today. Last year, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Public Safety Commission criticized the district, saying it needed a major culture shift on safety matters 3 years after the Parkland shooting. Have those issues been addressed? And also for Dr. Dotres, for you, are Dade County schools as safe as they can be?
Dr. Cartwright?
Thank you. So that was one of the things that immediately upon my arrival, we started addressing. So for example, we needed to have a reunification plan. We needed to have a crisis communication plan. Not only did we create the plans, but we've also been out into our communities. So we've been meeting with our various municipalities, making sure that they are reviewing the plans with us, making recommendations that's specific to their municipalities. And so that way, if something were to occur, it's not the first time that we're meeting each other, and the left hand and the right hand know what is going on. In addition to that, been working closely with the sheriff, especially in the real crime, the true crime unit, and as far as geo-mapping out all of our cameras, which was a concern before as well. In addition to that, also making sure that we're putting in processes on a layered approach. And I have to say it's a layered approach because there's no one right way to take into consideration about school safety. So with this approach, for earlier in the year, we started wanding with handheld metal detectors at our large athletic events. And now our school board is looking to our school board policy 2010, use of handheld metal detectors on school district property in order to do a randomized approach and going into campuses unannounced as far as the students are concerned in order to do searches. And we are finding things, fortunately not a gun, but we are finding items that should not be brought to school. And so it is in effect, the key in this methodology is the randomization, because if you just put metal detectors in front of all your schools, there's no randomization. Children are going to figure out how to go around the system, and they'll figure it out. Whereas if it's randomized, you never know, then it's always questioning, should I bring something with me or not? So that's the effectiveness of this. But we've done a lot of other work this year with our school safety. We fortunately had Sheriff Terry down here just last week to do a walkthrough to see the actual action that has occurred here within Broward County Public Schools based off of the MSD Commission recommendations, as well as the safe haven recommendations that have been given to us. And I think I would fair to say it was a very positive visit, that he was able to see a lot of the actions that were discussed verbally at the beginning of the year.
Thank you so much. School safety, Dr. Dotres?
Yes, absolutely. And I keep saying this. As a school district, we are incredibly fortunate that we have a cadre of over 500 officers, school resource officers, that are part of the culture of a school. They are in the schools every day. They are trained in preventive measures. They are there present every single school day to make sure that they prevent any issues regarding safety and protecting the schools. We have immediate responses from them. We're very well connected. We have a state-of-the-art command center, which actually has their eyes on school campuses throughout our entire school district, so that we are able to proactively making sure that we can respond in a very aligned and cohesive manner. And we have plenty of collaboration throughout the municipalities in terms of any additional support that we would need from them. But to me, in my opinion, the added safety that is available in our school district has a lot to do with our own school police department that is intricately connected to the culture of the school. And I have to say, safety and security will always be the number one priority for any school site. I remember when I was a principal, that was the greatest promise that you can provide to a parent. You provide a school that is safe first for kids and first for the parents, and everything else eventually will take into place. So we're being very diligent. We have a major campaign always in our school district. If you see something, you say something, you communicate it. It's key to everything that we're doing. So it's building that culture of vigilance, that culture of communication that I believe will make our schools safer. And we cannot forget that safety and actions that students may take on each other or so forth have to be attended by creating a culture within each school that's welcoming, that is positive, that children have a real sense of belonging. Our board has been also very vocal and very articulate in making sure that we have the appropriate security measures in place, but also very well balanced with the mental health and the social emotional supports that children need in order to be in a safe, healthy, and welcoming school environment.
Thank you so much. I really want to squeeze in one last question. It's a yes or no, but it's an interesting question, and we only have about 60 seconds left. Under your leadership, would you consider proposing a home ownership assistance model like the one that's been established at Miami-Dade County for eligible employees? We do know what the economy is looking like versus teacher salaries. Dr. Cartwright, quickly.
I can say unequivocally yes. In fact, I've already been reaching out to some of our local governmental agencies and partners and trying to advocate. So when we're talking about affordable housing, please remember we have a lot of teachers, we have a lot of staff that need access to that.
Thank you. And Dr. Dotres, briefly.
Absolutely. Easy question to answer, yes. We are trying to build partnerships. We're trying to make sure that we provide affordable housing. Anything that we can do to attract, retain teachers and staff is becoming really important. I think this is the way we are rethinking communities and even available land that we may have or buildings. We really are working together with some really good developers that are thinking differently and are thinking in this line. But it is an absolutely needed option that we will definitely pursue and expect to make a reality as we move forward.
Thank you so much. On behalf of my colleagues, I would like to thank the two of you for the generosity of your time and for sharing your vision of where you want your respective school districts to go. And we wish you well, and we wish you the best of luck. We have been talking to Jose Dotres, School Superintendent of Miami-Dade County, and Vickie Cartwright, the leader of Broward County's public schools. Thank you both, and thank you to our viewers. Take care.